Okay.
All right, I will call this Committee of Adjustment hearing to order. Just before we get started tonight, just a couple little housekeeping things. We have 4 applications that we will be hearing this evening. Just going through the meeting's protocol this evening, the first order of business, I will go through and ask if there's any conflicts of interest from any of the committee members, followed by any requests or deferrals of withdrawals. In that particular case, because we're doing it virtual, we will ask right at the start of each application if the applicant is still willing to proceed. The committee secretary treasurer will then go through each application. We'll read out the application itself and the details, the staff recommendation, along with any additional correspondence that they may have received since that time. The applicant will then be brought into the meeting. We will ask them to introduce themselves. And again, we'll touch base just to confirm that they wish to proceed. And they will be allowed some short introduction or any additional comments they wish to make. Members of the committee will then ask the applicant any questions that they have, followed by members of the public. I do have a list here. There's 6 delegations for application A1821 PC and 1 that is registered for A21-21 PC. So we will hear those when the time comes. Following that, after the presentations, again, committee members will have an opportunity to ask any additional questions, followed by the applicant of any closing comments that they wish to add. The committee will then make a decision in the form of a motion. Motion will be discussed and voted upon. If a vote is tied, a motion will be defeated and a new motion will be made until we have a decision. Notices of decision will only be provided to those persons who leave their name with the secretary treasurer and the planning department. They can contact Chris Rome at chris.rome, R-O-O-M-E at portcolborne.ca, or leave a voicemail at 905-835-2900, extension 205, immediately following the meeting or first thing in the morning, and to receive a notice of decision. In order to be advised of any possible local planning appeal tribunal hearings, you must request to be sent a copy of the committee's decision. So those are the protocols for this evening. So I'll first go and ask if anyone has any conflicts with any of the applications this evening. Not seeing any. And again, we'll ask for any deferrals or withdrawals once we get to those particular applications. So with that, I'll turn it to Chris for the first application.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our first application tonight is application A18-21-PC in the matter of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP13 as amended in section 2.9.2.1A3 and section 2.9.2.1A6 of the City of Port Colborne zoning bylaw 6575/30/18 as amended. And in the matter of the property legally known as Concession 4, Part Lot 12 on Plan 59R11764 in the City of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara, and located in the Agricultural Zone, municipally known as 3256 3rd Concession Road. In the matter of an application by the owners Jeff and Shannon Thesuska for relief from the provisions of the zoning bylaw 6575/30/18 as amended under Section 45 of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP13, so as to permit the continued use of a home-based business at 3256 3rd Concession Road, notwithstanding the following. 1, that the home-based business be permitted to occupy 32% of the gross floor area to a maximum of 180 meters squared, whereas 25% to a maximum of 23 meters squared is permitted. And 2, that 20 customers be permitted at any time on the lot, whereas 2 are permitted. Planning staff has reviewed the application and offer the following comments. Notice was sent out to the public and to the required agencies on June 29th, 2021, and the following has been received. The following comments will be summarized. The full comments are available in the agenda package for anyone who wishes to review them. From the public, from Greg Fox, Surface water runoff is flooding his property. Worried that an increase in people will put more strain on the septic system, which could result in more flooding of his property. He's worried of possible contaminants to a water supply due to runoff. Car headlights from the driveway shine directly into Mr. Fox's bedroom. An increase in customers will result in more cars on the property and more headlights into Mr. Fox's house. He has concerns over the lack of privacy, and an increased traffic on the street will result in less safe walking conditions. From Mr. Raymond Lord, does not agree that 32% ground floor area should be permitted. Concerns over the size of classes and amount of staff required to teach classes. Noted that there is a separate entrance to the existing home-based business. Has concerns over the amount of traffic due to increase in customers and amount of dust created by vehicles on the gravel driveway, and concerns about the capacity of the existing septic system if more customers are permitted on the property. From the Niagara region, the dance studio does not meet the criteria of the guidelines for agricultural related or on-farm diversified uses or the intent of the policies for prime agricultural areas. The use should be directed towards a settlement area as per the guidelines. The use will generate sewage flows beyond that of the existing septic system capacity, and a new Class 4 sewage system is required. It is of the opinion of regional staff that the use is not consistent with the policies of the PPS or provisions of the guidelines on permitted uses in Ontario's prime agricultural areas and does not align with regional policies. Upon receiving the region's comments, the applicant requested that they review the application again with the recommended 5 customers instead of the 20 that have been applied for, and the following was received today from the Niagara region. Niagara Region private sewage inspection staff have reviewed the revised changes to the planning application, reducing the number of proposed customers on the property from 20 to 5 or 8. The applicant has provided existing house plans indicating that the existing sewage flow is less than what was installed on the existing permit. Based on the information provided, our department has no objections to the revised application, provided that customers for the dance studio do not exceed 5 to 8 at any given time. Nevertheless, our remaining comments with respect to the provincial and regional planning interests as provided in our correspondence dated July 9th, 2021 remain unchanged. Accordingly, regional staff does not consider the proposed minor variance to be consistent with the provincial policy statement and does not conform to the regional official plan. Lost my place here. Planning staff recommend that application A18-21-PC as modified be granted subject to the following conditions. That the use be allowed to occupy a total of 25% of the total dwelling unit floor area with no maximum of 23 meters squared. 2, that 5 customers or clients of the home-based business shall be present at any time on the lot occupied by the dwelling. 3, that regional private servicing staff provide written confirmation that the existing septic system can support a maximum of 5 customers at any given time, or a new septic system be installed to the satisfaction of regional staff. For the following reasons: 1, it is minor in nature, as the request for 25% of the total dwelling unit floor area, an increase from 2 customers to 5 customers, is considered to be a reasonable and measured request. 2, it is appropriate for the development of the site, as there are no alterations to the building or site and the modified number of customers is appropriate. 3, it is desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, as home-based businesses are permitted in the agricultural zone. And 4, desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan, as home-based businesses are permitted in the agricultural designation. That concludes the correspondence for this application.
Thank you. Can you bring in the applicant, please?
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Pretty good. Just before we get started, you don't wish to withdraw or defer your application this evening?
No, I do not.
All right. So with that said, is there anything further you'd like to add at this time?
Yes, there is. Prior to my time starting, I would like the committee to pull up my submission to the committee on July 14th, titled Minor Variance Application A1821 PC Clarification.
As far as pulling it up, is that what you emailed today?
Yes.
Do you have the ability to share that on your screen?
I'm not sure. I can show a picture.
You don't have the electronic version there? It's just that
No,
because you
I do, but
just because you emailed it to us today, we need to
Right.
enter it into the record. The other thing you can do is you can read what you want from that.
yes.
So that way everyone else that's watching or listening can hear the same thing.
Okay, I'll definitely read what I have. So I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to address the concerns that were expressed in the submissions to our application. So I'd like to start with the class sizes. I'm not requesting to operate 20 classes, classes of 20 students, and agree with George McKibben's report stating classes of 5 at a time, with the exceptions of classes of 8 younger students 5 times a week. Allowing the increase to 5 clients be presented at a time on the lot occupied by the dwelling is appreciated. However, I would like to ask for your consideration to allow the maximum class size to be 8. This will allow for more socialization and group participation for younger clients, as well as accommodating for client dropouts. I'd like to now discuss the septic system, lot drainage, and surface water flow. The septic system approved by the region was designed and installed by Harvey Beam Excavating, who are approved by the region for such services. The septic system was designed and certified to handle 3,900 liters per day, which is approximately 2,300 liters, or 59% larger than what is required for a family the size of mine, which is 4. Additional information regarding the septic system was provided to the preliminary planning policy background report and impact analysis. Niagara Region private sewage inspection staff have reviewed and revised changes to the planning application, reducing the number of proposed customers on the property from 20 to 8. Based on the information provided to their department, they have no objections to the revised application provided to the number of customers, as long as it does not exceed 8 at any given time. As seen in the design drawings and pictures on page 4 and 5 of the response that I sent you this morning, the septic bed can be seen to be 13.5 meters away from the west property line. The dirt referred to in one of the submissions was approved by the city for the lot grading and was necessary as part of the design of the septic system. The approved property grading, the swales and weeping tile direct surface water flows northerly to the Henry Drain and southerly to the municipal ditch on the north side of 3rd Concession Road, diverting it from impacting all properties surrounding our property. The house's foundation and lot grading create a north-south flow barrier, directing surface water flow either to the north or south. Any water that could possibly be impacted by the septic system flows to the north. This is all in illustrated pictures on pages 4 and 15 of the 15-page package that was submitted this morning. In regards to sight lines, distances, and visual obstructions, the distance of the closest parking spot to the west neighbor is approximately 107 meters, which is about 120% further than a distance of a low beam headlight should illuminate. That's as big as a football field. Any light from client vehicles would be blocked by the existing foliage, as seen in the pictures on page 6 of the 15-page package that was submitted. Offers have been made to plant more trees or put in place a privacy screen to mitigate any light from client vehicles, but they were turned down. I would like to direct you to the top picture on page 6, where you can clearly see the blockage of light between the properties and distance between the light source and neighboring house. I have instituted a policy informing clients to back into parking spots to eliminate their headlights from illuminating into the neighboring property. In regards to the driveway dust, on page 7, it shows you the stoned area is the largest stoned area or driving area, and it's located at 3193 3rd Concession Road. You will also see that the predominant prevailing winds are from the southwest 70% of the time. Our driveway is constructed with granular A crushed stone as prescribed by the comprehensive zoning bylaw, so there would not be any significant off-site dust impact to the adjacent properties. In regards to our hours of operation, my home-based business does not operate 16 hours per day, and there is no intention of running that many hours. Hours of operation are 4 to 8 hours from Monday to Friday. My business services mainly children and youth who attend school. Therefore, the majority of operating hours are after school. I'd like to discuss traffic and walks. The experience of walking on the side of 3rd Concession Road, as described in the submissions, is not unique to 3rd Concession or this home-based business. Experiences of poor driving behavior occurs on all rural roads. It is unreasonable to associate this to the driving behavior of our clients. On a more positive note, I'd like to talk about the home-based business and the City of Port Colborne's community. So the home-based business, we work in collaboration with Pro Kids and Jumpstart to provide children of low-income homes the opportunity to dance. Our business has participated in many community events such as the Santa Claus Parade, Harvest Fest, Art Fest, and Canal Days. The location of our home-based business accommodates many rural families and some of the families that do not have transportation as they ride their bikes or walk to the business. Our home-based business gives back to Port Colborne's community by providing other businesses donations, sponsoring soccer teams, and supporting other small businesses in Port Colborne by keeping our business in Port Colborne and not taking our business to other nearby cities. I would really appreciate you consider the value that is reflected in the testimonials of our clients and community, such as, but not limited to, decreases symptoms of anxiety and depression, increased physical confidence, improved mental functioning, improved general and psychological well-being, greater self-confidence and self-esteem, better social skills, increased memory, improved posture, life skills such as discipline, responsibility, determination, teamwork, how to be a role model, empathy, and kindness. I have a letter I'd like to read to you from one of my students that attends the studio. Her letter says, W2 Dance Studio, my instructors Shannon and Haley, as well as all my classmates and dance supporters have become such an important part of my life. I am writing this letter to share what the studio and dancing means to me and how much of a positive impact it has had on my life. I began dancing at my studio at the age of 9 and have now been dancing for 8 years. Prior to dance, I was involved in other recreational sports where I didn't always feel welcomed or treated with full respect. I needed a reassuring change in my life, and W2 Dance Studio gave me everything I could ask for. I am very glad to say that as soon as I stepped into the doors of W2, I knew it was where I belonged. Shannon and Haley accepted me with open arms, and that was when I knew the studio and dance would become something I look forward to and something that I loved. When I was just a young dancer to the person I am now, dance has not only taught me valuable skills and lessons, but helped me grow in a way that nothing else could. Dancing and my instructors have taught me to be brave, passionate, and how to overcome struggles and reach my final goals. I have always been a slight perfectionist and sometimes struggled with confidence. Shannon and Haley have helped me overcome my worries both inside the studio and out, and find self-love and confidence throughout dancing. While at the studio, I have learned many life skills that will continue to help me positively change as a person and realize the importance of doing things you enjoy. I feel that while being at W2, I have been accepted into a dance family. The bond I have created with peers and the love I now hold for dancing is very powerful. While in the studio, I always feel welcome and cared for. No matter who you are or where you come from, judgment or inequality is never present. Both Shannon and Haley have always gone above and beyond to accommodate people's needs and build a connection with their students on personal level. The feeling of belonging and love within my studio is something I cherish very much and is something I would never trade. Being with W2 has given me opportunities and memories that will last a lifetime. I could never imagine dancing at another studio. From the lessons and performances to the fun times and experiences, the studio will always be something I hold close to my heart. My family and I have only had good outcomes with dancing and continuously appreciate the time and effort put towards our dancing careers and personal lives. To me, my studio is more than just a space to go to dance. It is my second home. Dancing is such an important part of my life, and I am so grateful that W2 Dance Studio and my instructors have always supported me and understood me for who I am. My dance journey has been fulfilled with laughter, kindness, empathy, and overall wonderful experiences that will never leave me. And it was Kyla Payne who wrote that. That's everything I had. So thank you for letting me speak to our application.
All right, thank you. Do any committee members have any questions? Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Shannon, for your report and the extra information. A couple of questions. I think they're related to you. If there's staff that have done this, perhaps they could chime in. When I read some of the background material that was presented to us by staff, it originally starts with using 32% of the gross floor area versus the 25. And it talks about 20 customers being permitted. So was it your initiative to either or grow the floor space to 32% to accommodate 20? And did you at one point ask for 20?
No, it was never my intention of expanding the building or floor space. I think there was a miscommunication in the numbers. We were never asking for 20 students per class. In the one submission of 117 pages, what I was trying to explain is that sometimes there can be an overlap with scheduling. So if we have, say, 10 customers on property and they're leaving, and then we have another set of 10 coming in, there is that potential of overlap. However, we can avoid all of that with scheduling, putting 10-minute breaks into the schedule to have people leave and then come, just working on scheduling more. So it was never our intent. It was strictly a miscommunication.
If I could, Mr. Chair, unorthodox, but does staff concur with that in terms of the ask and the floor space? Is that just what you guys recreated if there was 20 people? To Chris?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, to Member Bruno. Could you just rephrase that? I'm not sure what you meant by that.
Yeah, I was concerned that in the preamble in the application it says that the home-based business be permitted to occupy 32% of the gross floor and that 20 customers be permitted. So when I see in the matter of an application by the owners, my assumption is that that's what was applied for. But is that something you guys just reconfigured based on 20 people, or how did that requested in the application without it being the applicants?
Right. It was never indicated on the application the reasoning for the number of people. It was just implied, or not implied, but it was just stated that 20 people is requested, whereas 2 was required. And then later in the planning justification report, there was an explanation as to why those why the 20 people was requested. So, we processed the application based on what was presented to us in the application, not the rationale in the planning justification report.
Okay, and the 32%, then how did that number get around? I guess where I'm trying to go with this is I understand Shannon's point is actually going to be my second question, that there is that time when people are coming and going. And just like when you pick your kids up at school, right? If everybody's pouring out at the same time, you need a gigundous parking lot, right? But 5 minutes later, it works. So if you stagger the classes, right, you don't need the bigger lot. So I get that. I was just, I guess in my mind's eye, I was thinking that you ultimately wanted 20 and that the reduction was getting you down to 5. But I'm clear on that based on Shannon's last answer. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Shannon, one more question. You say in the rationale for 5 to 8 being the smaller children and also to accommodate people that I guess leave or quit. Is that what you're reporting?
Correct. As I'm sure you are all aware, when you have younger children, they might try something and then realize it's not for them. They don't like it. So one of our policies is that they can get a refund if they withdraw from classes within the first 6 weeks of classes. So sometimes there is a change throughout the year with those class sizes going down.
So if 5 people was the maximum and 1 leaves for the reasons you said,
yep.
Can you not supplant that space into that new now vacant 5 max? So if you have 5 students there and 1 leaves after 3 weeks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you not slot a new student on the waiting list or wants to join into slot 5?
No, not typically, because our schedule is already done.
Okay.
So there's a registration time, which most people arrive and register for at that time. So it's very rare when you get a late registration. So the classes are already designed. So it is very, very rare if that was to ever happen.
So when you have 8, but one of your justifications is that people can leave.
Correct.
Then you just have 7, right? For the
Correct.
rest of the program.
Correct.
Okay.
Especially when you get halfway through the year, for example, our season runs from September to June. So say someone drops out in December, which is past our refund point, but they've still decided it's not for them, and they decide to withdraw from classes. Our dances for our recitals and competitions, which are in April, have already been started. Our formations and choreography have already been started. So someone coming in to enter those classes, it would be very challenging for them to pick up the choreography, to learn it in a very short period of time. So I explain that to customers that are interested, and I suggest waiting, because that's very challenging for children to try to pick up choreography if they have no dance experience in that short period of time, and feel comfortable with it and confident. And I want every student that attends our studio to feel comfortable and successful in whatever they're maybe trying to achieve.
That could happen. That could happen with your older students with 5 customers. I'm still trying to understand. Is Correct. It because 8 little ones, the program's shorter? They virtually take up less space because they're smaller?
That's exactly it. Younger students are smaller, so they take up less space. So with the space that we have, we can accommodate more smaller children than we can accommodate teenagers.
Understand. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Donna, and then Eric. Donna first.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me? Through you, Mr. O'Hara. Maybe this is to David again. I thought when he was reading through what the region, excuse me, I thought when he read through, he said that the region was okay with 5 to 8, that they were okay with those numbers. Am I wrong in saying that, David? Was that not part of it? They just were not happy with it any more than the 8. And I thought that included just 8 customers from what you had originally said when you outlined what was in the package.
Hi, my name is Rick Brady. I'm working in the planning department while Dan's on away, and I'm providing some guidance, and I signed this particular report. The region is not happy with 5 nor 8. So from a planning perspective, 5 nor 8 is acceptable. What they have said is that they think that the sewage treatment system may be able to accommodate it. But from a land use planning perspective, they're not happy or supportive of a change to either 5 nor 8. Their second letter was, I think, fairly clear on that matter.
Okay, so that explains it then. So when they said, they were saying it was a sewage system that they were saying could be handled 5 to 8, and they're still not happy with the 5 or 8 on either of these.
That's correct.
Got it?
That's
okay,
correct.
Thank you.
Eric, and then Angie after that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Brady. If we were to pass this resolution as it is written at this time, would that mean then that, say, 5-10 years down the road, the applicant no longer lives at that address, and the next person who does live there decides they want to operate a garage or an automotive garage or something of that nature, or some other home-based business that may have an adverse impact on the land use, would that still be possible?
The resolution that's before you, which planning staff have supported, is that it's 5 for this kind of use. So 5 people in a dance studio. It would not mean that you could have 5 mechanics, if you will, or 5 other kinds of home-based business. So it's specific to this form of home-based business. So if the owners of the property left and sold it to somebody else, then a home-based business is still permitted there, but the 5 is not a determinant of it.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Member Beauregard, I don't think that the resolution in front of you has it stated that it's 5 customers, given that the home-based business is a dance studio. That is an option that we can put in you guys can put in the recommendation if you so choose.
Okay. I would like to put an amendment forward to clarify that in the resolution. Is there a preferred language? I'm trying to think of it off the top of my head, but I'm having difficulties.
Yeah, I think if I might, once we get to that stage, we can just change the wording to where it says home-based business to specifically dance studio home-based business or something like that. I think that's pretty easy to do.
Yes, I agree to
Okay.
that.
Angie, I think you had some questions.
Yeah, I do, Dan. Thank you. This actually would probably be best with Mr. Brady. Rick, we've in the past made decisions at Committee of Adjustment that were not in agreement with what the region had put out, and those decisions were ultimately challenged. Would you suggest that the region would be challenging us on the decision if we were to go with 5 or 8, or just if we were to go with 8?
Thank you for the question. I can't always speak for the region, but I can suggest to you that if you approve this evening 5, that the planning staff, including myself, would be available to defend that position. And we would obviously have discussions with the region if they decided to launch an appeal, if need be. So I think 5 is more a comfortable number that could be supported, if you will. 8 at the present time has no support from Port Colborne planning staff, and clearly is not supported by regional staff as well. So if 8 was what was substituted and there was an appeal of some form, then the Port Colborne planning staff would not be able to defend that appeal.
Okay, that's basically what I wanted to know. We've been down this road before, so I just wanted to be really clear on that. Thank you.
Shannon, you had a question? Comment?
Yes. I was attached to an email this morning from Pat, who is the manager development planning Niagara region, planning and development. It was to Chris today. And it says, further to the confirmation provided regarding the maximum class size for the proposed dance studio, please see the updated comments below with respect to the private sewage system considerations. As such, the region's requirements from a private servicing perspective have been satisfied. So nevertheless, our remaining comments with respect to the provincial and regional planning interests as provided in our corresponding dated July 9th, 2021 remain unchanged. According to regional staff, does not consider the proposed minor variance to be consistent with the provincial policy statement and does not confirm the regional official plan. And this was from Justin, the inspector private sewage system. It says the Niagara region private sewage inspection staff have reviewed the revised changes to the planning application, reducing the number of proposed customers on the property from 20 to 5 or 8. The application has provided existing house plans indicating that the existing sewage flow rate is less than what was installed on the existing permit. Based on the information provided, our department has no objection to the revised application provided the customers for the dance studio do not exceed 5 to 8 at any given time.
Just to that point, though, I think you just reaffirmed what Mr. Brady said. With regards to the sewage system, they believe it would accommodate up to 8.
Correct.
However, the comment about the other parts of the provincial policy statement and the regional plan stand in the sense that they don't believe you should exceed the minimum amount that's defined. And that's kind of the gray area, because
Okay.
I don't know, through you to Mr. Brady there, does the region have provisions for business in the home, and because they're not covered under zoning, right? They just try to apply the provincial regulations. Is that a fair statement?
The Regional Municipality of Niagara looks to the local municipality as to whether or not home-based businesses are permitted. Home-based businesses are permitted. The size of the business is the issue here. And what the region has, in my opinion, made fairly clear is that they're not supportive of 5 nor 8 on a land use planning basis. They have revised their comments based on the information that was provided by the applicant to suggest that 5 or 8 would be acceptable from a septic perspective, given the comments that they've made. But that neither are, do they find acceptable from a provincial policy perspective and from their own regional perspective. So planning staff at the city have tried very hard to find what we believe is a compromise that we think is defendable if this is appealed to LPAT, and that we can stand behind as we move forward. And that number is 5.
I understand that and appreciate that. I guess my question was, let me rephrase this a little bit. From the regional standpoint, do they even accept 2 in the provincial or in the city's bylaw? Or do they defer that to the city to decide what that limit should be?
they defer to the city as to whether or not a home-based business is permitted in this area. And the official plan for Port Colborne does provide for a home-based business, and the genesis of the official plan in Port Colborne is that it was approved by the region. So the city approved it, and then the region approved it. So by doing that, they have approved that a home-based business
Is permitted.
is permitted. It's not in their plan, but it's in our plan, and they've accepted that, and it moves forward. Well, so there's no issue about whether or not a home-based business is permitted. What is at issue is the intensity of the use.
Yeah, fair enough. So I'm going to play it hypothetical here. So if the city decided to change their bylaw to 10 clients, the bylaw doesn't have to be reviewed and approved by the region, does it?
The zoning bylaw, which is what I think you're referring to, has to
Correct.
be consistent with the official plan.
Okay, fair enough.
And
And that is one of the tests. I agree.
So fair enough.
But say council decides that they want to make 10 clients the limit, and the region, like what recourse would the region have? They've accepted the official plan. The official plan says you can have a business in the home. They've accepted that, but it's the bylaw that dictates the amount of clients. Is it the city? You know, if they want to set that, okay, you can have a business in your home, but we feel that the limit should be 10. Would the region be able to object to that amendment to the bylaw?
Yes.
And I guess would that vetting process of the bylaw, would that have to get through the region?
No, the zoning bylaw is something which is approved by the local municipality, and the region reviews it, but it's approved by the local municipality. It's not approved by the regional council. But the regional municipality has the ability to appeal a zoning bylaw amendment that they feel is not in conformity with the provincial policies. And they've clearly said that in this case they believe 5 nor 8 is consistent with the provincial policy. If I can just sort of encapsulate this, if it's 5, then the city of Port Colborne's planning staff can quite legitimately go to the region and say, please let this go. If it's 8, we can't.
Okay. If I might, to the applicant before we get to the delegations that are going to be speaking to this, that 5 to 8 split. You say 8 for younger, 5 for older. Is there an age kind of limit split line as to, okay, if they're under 10, it's 8. If they're 10 and older, it's 5. Is there like an age bracket or limit that differentiates where you would prefer the 5 or 8 split to be?
I would if I was to choose, it would probably be around 11, 10, 11 and below for the 8.
Okay. Thank you. Does any other members have any questions of the applicant at this point before I open it up to the public? Not seeing any. So with that, Chris, I believe the first delegation is Raymond and Richard Lord.
Yes, that's correct. Mr. Chair, I don't see them in the waiting room here, so if we could move on to the next, that would be great.
Mr. Chair, I did have a question for you
Sure,
raised my hand.
Yeah.
Just through you to, I guess, Mr. Brady. So I understand that we're for the fourth part of the test and how the application meets the general intent of the official plan. I understand that you're saying, or that we're saying, that the a home-based business is permitted, but I'm just wondering if you can clarify whether or not that is supposed to be agricultural related home-based businesses, or is it home-based businesses in general? I would like some clarification on that.
and I stand to be corrected by this, but nonetheless, a home-based business is permitted. It's not specific in the official plan that it has to be an agriculturally home-based business. Okay, it's simply that a home-based business is permitted. So, if you will, to the absurd, all of the students that there don't have to be farmers. Okay, that would be to the absurd, if you will. But it's clear that that a home-based business is permitted in this particular land use, as it is in other land uses as well. But it's not specified whether or not it has to be agricultural related.
Okay, thank you.
Gary, you had a question?
Sure, also for Rick. So in our home-based business bylaw, dance studio is allowed, and does it and other home-based businesses list the number of patrons, customers? So in this case, is it 2? And we're as a variance to that, or as a minor in nature, we're allowing potentially 5.
The bylaw that is it's the standard for the municipality is that within a home-based business, you're allowed 2.
Gotcha. Okay.
2 people.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? All right. If we can, is Mr.
Sorry,
Greg?
Mr. Chair. I
Yeah.
believe the Raymond Lord is in there under a separate account. They did put their hand up when we called on them,
Okay.
so I'm going to bring them in. And
All right. Sounds good.
Hello?
Hello.
I don't know if you guys could hear me or not.
We can hear you. We can't see you, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Is this Richard or Raymond?
This is Richard, and Raymond is standing beside me, and I'm going to speak on behalf. So
Okay, very good. Just before you get started, can you just reaffirm for the record your address, and please try to limit your comments to 10 minutes if you could.
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Name is Richard Lord, 134 Merritt Parkway North, Port Colborne, speaking on behalf of Raymond Lord Sr. of 3193 3rd Concession, Port Colborne. He's mostly French speaking, and as this is an English meeting, so I'll be speaking for him.
No problem.
So first thing is going to be, I would like to thank Shannon for her letter and stating that how kids are, how it helps kids to dance. With that statement, it would be a great benefit if they did move their dance studio to a bigger location so more people could enjoy and take advantage of the great services that they give. That is one comment. Number 2 would be the septic. I think if a field trip to adjacent neighbors would be done, you guys would see the damage and the excess water it's creating. And just that's it. And the last thing is my comment would be, I hope everyone knows that Miss Shannon is also Harry Wells' daughter, which is creating a lot of havoc for us out in that neighborhood. So this is just another thing that we got to deal with. And I don't understand how 8 is a minor variance. To me, that's 4 times greater in my math. So that's not a minor variance. And I do have a question for Shannon on 8 students. If they are younger, normally younger kids are shorter. It's a height thing. According to COVID stats, we still need the same radius around each person. So how does kids being younger allow you to have more students in the same location while following COVID protocols? So, and that's my question, and that's what I mean. I don't understand how this is a minor variance for a city. And I think that's it. I'd like to thank the city for all the hard work they're doing.
All right, thank you. Shannon, did you want to respond to any of those comments?
Sure. When it comes to the space on the flooring, it has, first of all, has nothing to do with COVID. Dan O'Hare came to our location and viewed the space. It's clearly marked on the floors, the social distancing. It's actually more than is required. It's more than the 2 meters apart. So we have X's with boxes around them where the children are supposed to stay. But nonetheless, it has nothing to do with COVID. In the package that I submitted, that's 117 pages, it does go over the floor spacing for students and how much they require in according to the National Dance Academy. The National Dance Teachers Association. Sorry, I'm just trying to find some of that information. So they use certain, so it says dancers need to be able to jump and move about freely without the fear of running into objects. A useful rule of thumb for static positions is to provide a maximum of 3 square meters for each dancer of the preliminary school age range and 5 meters for those in secondary age range. So this is what we try to follow. There's diagrams in the 117 page package that you can see that allows 8 younger students and 5 older students with those measurements. We're not in a position financially to move and rent space. We are a small home-based business, so we don't have the financial means, especially with COVID. We've had a lot of changes to our business. A lot of people don't have the financial means for extracurricular activities. So we've seen a decrease in clients as well. If we ever do get to the point where we can sustain the business with the extra costs of renting a facility, then we will definitely look at moving into Port Colborne to be able to do that.
All right, thank you. If no one else got any other questions, the next delegation on the list is Greg Fox.
There. Hear me
Good
now?
evening, sir. Again, just like the first app or the first delegation, if you could just restate your address and try to limit your comments to 10 minutes, it'd be appreciated.
Okay. My name is Greg Fox. I live at 3166 3rd Concession. I'm the property just west of where Shannon's house is. All of my property actually surrounds. I'm on the north side of her property as well. My concern was the septic system because my water supply is between my house and their house. And that's where we get our water supply for our house. So fresh, clean water is a concern. We do not want that contaminated with any runoff. Now, I appreciate that it has been looked into for the septic. Although Shannon's comment that the water only runs north and south, that's mistaken. There's no barrier to stop the water from flowing west. When you get rain, and if there is a problem with the septic system, it's going to come to the surface, and any surface water is going to take it to the lowest point, which would be over onto my property, whether it's north or west. My other concern is when you look at the map that Shannon provided of the driveway, it actually goes up to an elevation facing west towards my house. So it's actually up about 5 feet. And my concern is not in the summertime, it's all fall, winter, and spring when there's no foliage on the leaves. It's darker in the evening. That's when you get the headlights shining on the house. So if this business were to continue, we need to advise some other parking arrangement. Now there is on a lower level, on regular ground level, on the front of the house, they could back in off the driveway and face their car lights to the east. It's just agricultural land to the east. There's nothing there, and it wouldn't interfere with our property at all. And it's great that her business is doing so well for her customers. Appreciate it. I'm a little concerned with the traffic. Now, if we can minimize it, the best, because even Shannon and her husband have agreed that people driving down the road on rural roads don't usually care if people are walking, and they don't usually move over. And I know, and I said the same thing with them, that you don't have control over it, but if we can minimize it, that is the best. And those were my concerns. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Shannon, earlier you had mentioned about you had suggested putting up some sort of barrier. Is that a possibility to put up like a privacy fence or some sort of fencing around that parking area? So if they do turn that way, that in the winter months, that would block the light as well. Is that a possibility?
Absolutely. And I did speak to Mr. Fox about that, which he declined. So I can definitely do that.
Okay.
I also instituted the policy of having people back into the parking spot, which can be enforced as well.
Yeah, the only challenge with that is that for that to be enforced, I don't know how you would put it into say a condition, because it would happen so fast that unless someone was standing right there to catch them. And I don't even know if that would necessarily be enforceable from a city perspective. I will say that we do have the ability to add as a condition that some sort of barrier in that parking area be added for light filtration. It wouldn't have to be very high, maybe about 4 feet or something, just kind of higher than where your typical headlights would be. And could be just some sort of like wooden fence or something like that.
We do have grasses there along the parking lot already that come up to my shoulders.
The only concern would be like the delegation has mentioned in the winter months. And I was kind of the same opinion when I visited the property. I kind of looked over and I looked at satellite images, and that would have been the only time that I could see that light would kind of get from point A to point B, would be during the winter months when there is no foliage. And because we get...
we can definitely plant some coniferous trees.
Okay, so we can maybe the committee members can consider that as a potential condition as well to add with their decisions should they decide to go that way. To the delegation again one more time. I see you got your hand up. You still have some time.
Yes, I just wanted to confirm that the parking area is actually about 5 feet higher than the regular land grade in the area. So the cars are elevated already. So if that's why I was suggesting down in the front, there's lots of space in the front, if you've been there, where they can back in or pull in off the driveway. They're not interfering with my side. Because when the house was built, they built their house behind my house. So their front yard is in my backyard, like equal to my backyard. So their parking comes right up shining on the house. That's why I'm suggesting closer to the road.
Okay. These are, I guess, points that the committee could add as a condition. Gary, you had your hand up.
Yes, Mr. Chair, to your point, and now to Mr. Fox's, it's fine and dandy for us to put whether it's closed board or coniferous fence, but I really don't have a sense of the linear length of whether it's coniferous or fence. And given Mr. Fox's comment about the height differential, I'm just wondering if there is a suggested length that would need to happen to shield your living room bedroom? In other words, it's not the full length of the driveway, but is it, 30 feet, 50 feet, 20 feet, because otherwise, I think if we incorporated that, without a specific, I don't know how you enforce putting a barrier when we don't know. You could put a 5-foot piece of fence and that's a barrier, but it doesn't work. I don't know if you care to venture into that area, Mr. Fox.
Yeah, that's my preferred would be parking down closer to the road on the regular grade, not up high, where car lights are going to shine around.
And if it was up high, would a fence be able to shield it at a certain height and length?
If possibly, if that fence was built on that same elevation,
right,
not down low on regular ground level.
And what width or what length would it need to be?
I haven't been over to the property to actually see what it would be. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else got anything? All right, not seeing anything. Thank you, Mr. Fox.
Thank you.
Oh, Mr. Chair, sorry.
Yeah, Gary.
Back to Shannon. Shannon, so the concept of parking at the lower level, what would that entail, or how problematic would that be for your customers?
It's not problematic at all because that's where the majority of our clients park already. It's my sister and I who instruct the classes who park up on the upper level. We start during the day and we leave in the evening. It's very rare when someone comes up onto the upper level.
And what about the concept of facing the other way to the agricultural property?
I back into the position. Like my car is always backed in. So it is already facing Third Concession Road and to the agricultural property already. To the south. I can ask my sister to back in to do that as well.
But the customers are going to park where they're told to park. So can you have them park on the lower level, or can you do a screening if they're at the upper level, or both? Depending on which way
I can definitely have them park on the lower level.
Mr. Fox,
that's what I was asking. Yeah, because there's times when cars are sitting there with the lights running at 9:30, 10:30 at night, and their headlights shining on their house.
We don't operate at 10:30 at night, though.
And there has been. Don't say there hasn't been. There has been.
And that might be family visits or different things like that. But our business is closed at 10:30 at night. I have a family that I need to put to bed.
10:30 at night, but they're sitting in the car with the car lights shining for 45 minutes or an hour the whole time, not just pulling in and out. That was my concern. Put it down the lower level.
Yeah. So I think we covered that base. And again, thank you, Mr. Fox.
Okay.
So with that, if no one's got any other questions, the third delegation is a George McKibben.
Can you hear me, Mr. Chair?
We can, yes. And again, just like the other delegations, just please state your address for the record and try to limit your comments to 10 minutes if you could.
I'm the planning consultant working for Shannon. And originally I thought I would be first in the for Shannon, and I would give a quick overview. And Shannon has gone before me and done much better job than I could have done. So I'm really happy that she went first. I did want to say, though, a couple of things. One is that in terms of the recommendation your staff has made to you, we're in agreement with that recommendation. So there's no difference of opinion there. The only exception was we wanted you to consider the 8 students 5 times a week. Because it does, not being able to do that represents a hardship to the business for the reasons that Shannon has described to you already, namely that some of the children don't complete the course, and so she may start with 8, but she may not end up with 8 at the end of the course. Those really are the only comments I wanted to make, other than simply to refer you to the maps that Shannon has provided in her brief with respect to drainage, the distance between the parking lot and the house adjacent to the west. The main wind direction is to the northeast from the southwest. So actually any dust that might be generated by the Shannon's driveway is really conveyed to the farmland to the east, and not to other neighbors. And those are the essential comments that I wanted to make, and I think everything else has been covered. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No one else has any questions? Okay. The next delegation is a Shiloh Slater.
What's your name? Hi.
Welcome. Just before you get started, if you can state your name and address for the record and try to limit your comments to 10 minutes, please.
Yeah, my name's Shiloh Slater, and I live at 1623 Brookfield Road.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I've been part of W2 Dance Studio for the past 7 years, ever since they moved to their current location in Port Colborne, which is right by my house, and it makes it easy and convenient for me to attend classes while having a single parent. Prior to starting at the studio, I tried a lot of different activities in my schools and professionally, but it wasn't until I started dancing that I was able to find something I really loved. I've always had problems with quitting things in the past out of lack of interest, but that was never a problem in the studio. Both Shannon and Haley had given me great experiences as a dancer, and I've never felt more at home than I do when I'm there. No other extracurricular activities have given me this feeling in the past. When I come to the studio, I was only 10 and was far behind what most of the girls my age were, but both Shannon and Haley took the time and patience to train me. Over the years, I have seen them do this with multiple other students, no matter who they are or their background. They do not only have a passion for dance, but the passion to help us reach our true potential as dancers. They have always been supportive of me, not only in my dancing career, but within my life outside of the studio. They have watched me grow into the person I am today, and I'm very thankful for all of the time and the effort they have put into me. They have taught me lifelong lessons and attributes such as discipline, courage, kindness, independence, teamwork, and so much more I will carry with me for the rest of my life. The studio has become a second home for me and a place where I can feel safe to be myself and get away from any problems I may be facing. Shannon and Haley have never made me feel like the studio is anything other than a secure and welcoming environment for me where I'm consistently loved and appreciated. Even the other girls at the studio have all become a big part of my life. I have made lifelong friendships and memories that I think every kid should get to experience. Dancing not only keeps me healthy physically, but also mentally. It is an outlet for me and many others, which is very important as we grow and mature as young adults. COVID-19 has made a lot of changes in the dancing world over the past few seasons at the studio, but Shannon and Haley have gone above and beyond to make sure we are still getting everything dance has to offer. I see the effects dance has on kids of all ages, as I've helped Shannon teach the nursery class for the past 4 years. Every student she gets, she makes an effort to form a connection with. After every dance class, each kid leaves with a smile on their face. Every child she and Haley teach always love them and can't wait to come back and see and learn from either of them again. Overall, Haley and Shannon have proven that their studio is not only a place for people to come and learn how to dance, but also a place to gain a second family. Every person who has been at the studio can attest to the fact that the community that Haley and Shannon have built is one of acceptance and growth. This dance studio has impacted the lives of many people in Port Colborne and the surrounding areas and should be able to continue to do so. To me, the studio is one of the biggest parts of my life, and I will always be thankful for the opportunities it has given me. Every dance, recital, class, smile, struggle, and hardship of being a dancer, W2 Dance Studio has been the sole rock for me to build upon, which I will forever get to cherish. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. No one's got any questions. Very good. Thank you very much. The next delegation is Marijuana Slater. Hopefully I said that right.
Hello?
Hello.
Can you see me?
We can't see you, but we can hear you.
Oh, I can't. How do start my video? Sorry, I'm in the country here.
That's okay. If you don't have great internet, it might be better to just leave your video off. If it gets really shaky, just you can shut your video off. If that makes it easier. But
I think I see me.
yes, we can see you now.
Sorry. Yeah, I tried to upgrade my internet, but sometimes it's not so good. So I just like to say thank you for allowing me to participate in the conversation. And it's Morwenna Slater. I live at 1623 Brookfield Road. I'm actually Shiloh's mom. I didn't realize she was going to be participating.
No problem.
Okay, so thank you for letting me talk at the meeting. First of all, I've been a widow for over 10 years, and my daughter was never passionate about anything she ever used to do. She did say that. We drove by the dance studio one day and we seen the sign, and so we thought that we'd like to try it. I had investigated other dance studios prior to her age of 10, but they always wanted you to take like 3 classes in order to do the one. And my daughter, she wasn't up to when she was like 4. Maybe some kids are, but I thought taking 3 or 4 classes all at once is a lot. So when we investigated this dance studio, they said, oh yeah, you can just take 1. And they had a selection of classes. And so she started with 1, which was hip hop. We signed up with that 1 class, and she started more classes, and it was the only thing that she's ever stuck with. The dance studio has been a very important, vital part of my daughter's life and well-being, mentally and physically. There's such a positive atmosphere in and outside of the building. The studio is a very professional and dedicated to the students and the families, and you can always depend on the teachers, Miss Shannon and Miss Haley, and their families, especially when it comes to costumes for recitals and competitions. They do all of the hemming, and you don't have to worry about anything when your child participates in a class at W2 Dance Studio. Of discipline, routine, and structure, and the ability to work as a team for the young children that go there. It builds confidence, and it creates its own community and actual family, not just like they're part of my family. It's like a church family. When you belong to a group, it's considered a family, where students feel safe and able to grow and succeed in their own skills levels. This creates contributing young people to community and society. My daughter's been able to volunteer for Shannon for many years with the very young children, the beginner dancers, which has made her very patient and compassionate as a growing teenager as well. And that makes her a contributor to her community. The studio has always been very flexible when it comes to payment and scheduling around my work ours and the other students and their lives and their families. I feel that I'm not just a number at that dance studio. You're not just a paycheck to them. They really appreciate you as a parent, and they really do their best to make sure that everybody is happy with what they're doing, what they're taking, their levels. And if there's, I've never had any issues. The teachers speak to the children. If the children have issues, they'll come to the parents, but I've never had an issue with anything at the dance studio between the teachers and my child. They say that it takes a village to raise a child, and the studio, in my opinion, is an amazing contributor to our village of Port Colborne, and I would like to see it continue. My daughter will be going into grade 12 next year, and it will be her last year for dance. And when I drive down Brookfield Road to go on the concession, I can't help but my truck wants to go into the dance studio to drop her off. We've been there for quite a few years, and I just want to thank you again for the opportunity, and I'm really grateful that the dance studio is down from where I live.
All right, thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Not seeing any. Thank you very much. And the last one on the list that I have is Jasmaya Eklund. Oh, Eric, you got a question for the next delegation?
Well, to you, Mr. Chair, actually, I'm just wondering if the next speaker would be able to keep their comments to a land use related aspect, as the question of whether or not their experience has been good with the applicant is not necessarily pertinent to this application. So that's all.
Thank you. Can we bring in the last delegation, please?
Hi.
Hello. Can we get your address for the record?
1445 Chippewa Road.
Thank you. Floor is yours.
All right. So as you said, you wanted to kind of keep it to, and one of the ideas, I guess that I know one of the big concerns was headlights, as well as amount of traffic. I do live right around the corner from the studio, and I can say I've never noticed a big headlight wise. I would think one of the things would be, obviously this is up to the family because it is her property, but a driveway that goes like around like this, where you enter in and then you go through into the east. That way no headlights would be facing that way. Most of the points that I were going to say were pretty much repeats of what Shiloh as well as Ms. Slater said. I really wanted to focus on the sense of community that W2. I started dancing when I was 13, which at that point, a lot of people are quite into their dance journey, very talented. And I was very nervous when I started because I didn't want to be the one person that was far behind. However, I felt so welcome so quickly there. And throughout the years, progressed to more classes. And in general, just being at the studio, it's very inspiring what Miss Shannon and Miss Haley, their dedication to the studio. A big example being last year with COVID, it was difficult to have recitals and shows, but they did pretty much everything possible to ensure that every student got the pretty close to a regular experience and a regular year by even setting up an outdoor stage. And so, yeah, also a lot of things, nothing goes unnoticed at the studio. Any accomplishments that students have, Shannon and Haley have always been there encouraging everyone, and it's definitely a place that I'm always excited to go to. I go there in like 30 minutes also, and I'm very excited for that as well. But yeah, at the studio, we not only learn and grow as dancers, but also as people. We learn a lot about teamwork and cooperation, leadership and communication. And I think that my experience at the studio has really helped me become, I guess, kind of a better person in a way. And like I said before, Shannon and Haley have really inspired me as a person in terms of dedication. And I think that everyone at the studio can say that it really helps their well-being. Like Shannon had said, mental health, also physical health, and many different aspects within there. And And in general, I don't want to repeat too many things. So I think that's pretty much what I have. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I believe that concludes the delegations for this application. Is there any additional questions of any of the committee members before I turn it over to the applicant for any final comments? Not seeing any. I for myself, listening to some of the comments, I guess one of the questions that I have is mentioned a few times about preparation for recitals and so on. You don't conduct any of these at your facility, do you?
No, we rent Lakeshore Catholic High School.
Okay, thank you. So with that, like I say, there's been Angie, I'll see your hand there. So like I said, there's been a few things that have been addressed. So hopefully the committee members can take those into consideration with any recommendations. And just before I turn it over to you, Shannon, for any final comments, Angie, you had something you'd like to add?
Yes, actually, thanks, Dan. I did want to ask Shannon a question. It appears that the dance studio has been in operation for a very long time, which is great. And I'm wondering what is different now than from before? Is it just that you need to grow the business and make space for more students, or what is made this happen?
We started in Welland, actually.
Okay.
So we opened up in Welland and then we moved to Port Colborne. We were unaware of the numbers that were required by the comprehensive zoning law, and so we pressed forwards with the minor variance.
Okay, thank you. That's I wondered about that. Thanks.
Yeah.
So
that's everything I had.
Thank you. To that point, then, how long has your current been at this location?
We've been here at this location 8 years.
Okay. All right. I don't have anything more to add. If no other committee members have any questions, Shannon, I don't know if you wish to add any final comments or clarifications that you'd like from what you've heard.
I just want to say in the 8 years that we have been here, we've had no complaints from neighbors prior to this. And that if you could please look at the information that I submitted to you today, that would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you. So with that, unless anyone's got any further comments or questions, does anyone have a recommendation at this point? We did bring up the potential of parking. So if someone does have a recommendation, you can either leave as per the original proposal, and then we can amend with additional conditions if desired. So anyway, is there anyone that wants to take a stab at it? Eric?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm just making sure I get the resolution up, the correct one. Okay, so in application A18-21-PC, concession 4, part lot 12, municipally known as 3256 3rd Concession Road. The minor variance application A18-21-PC be granted, subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report dated July 9th, 2021. Sorry, I apologize. The minor variance application 18-21-PC be granted, subject to the following conditions. That the use be allowed to occupy a total of 25% of the total dwelling unit floor area with no maximum of 23 meters square. 2, that 5 persons, excluding staff, of the of the dance studio, would that be a correct way to define the business?
I think so.
Okay. So shall be present at any time on the lot occupied by the dwelling. That regional private servicing staff provide written confirmation that the existing septic system can support a maximum of 5 customers at any given time, or a new septic system be installed to the satisfaction of regional staff. For the following reasons: 1, minor in nature as a request for the 25, well, for the following reasons. I guess I'll read it out. Minor in nature as a request for 25% of the total dwelling unit floor area. An increase from 2 customers to 5 customers is considered to be a reasonable and measured request. 2, appropriate for development of the site, as there are no alterations to the building or site and the modified number of customers is appropriate. Desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, as home-based businesses are permitted in the agricultural zone. 4, desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan, as home-based businesses are permitted in the agricultural designation.
Thank you. Can I get a seconder to that? Gary? Questions or comments? Gary?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I did want to speak to, but leave some options open for that headlight issue that was brought up. And so I would suggest a number 4 on conditions. And I've written that customers of the dance studio park in the designated lower level parking area, or a landscape or fenced berm be constructed at the upper level to alleviate the light, I don't know what I want to say, light pollution, the headlights from shining into neighboring property when picking up or dropping off students.
Very good. So moved. Do I get a seconder to that amendment? Angie? All those in, any questions or comments to Gary's amendment? Not seeing any. All those in favor of the amendment? Be carried. So we've added condition 4. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Eric?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just would like to make sure that the committee is aware that I didn't read the motion exactly as it was stated in the that we have. I did change the fact that I said 5 persons excluding staff. So instead of 5 customers or clients. So I'm not sure if anyone, if you would like to maybe comment on that, or if anyone else of the committee would like to speak to that.
I don't think that causes an issue. I don't believe additional staff or the one staff member, they're only permitted 1 additional staff member other than the homeowner. I don't think that's deemed to be a customer. So whether it's worded that way or the other way, I don't think it covers the same base. And the definition that this would only apply to a dance studio, I think is the key there that you wanted to get in there. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? I would like to add or modify the second point there to, if everyone's desirable, to make that 5 customers aged 12 and older, and 8 customers less than 12. If I could, I'll put that on the floor as a motion if someone can second that. Gary? So I don't know if anyone's got any comments on that. I guess one of the questions that I had the staff earlier this week was what the definition of a customer is. I realize that when you get to the younger ages, parents tend to hang around. So if a parent is there and a student is there, is that technically 2 customers or still 1 customer? Maybe just to that point, before I see a few hands up, Shannon, typically do parents stay when their kids are there, or do they just drop off and then they leave?
They drop off and leave. We don't permit parents to stay.
Okay.
We started that with COVID, and it actually puts a lot of our students more at ease. They feel that without their parents watching, they can be more free and express themselves through dance a lot better. So that being said, we're going to continue forwards with the parents dropping off and leaving. So it would only be the students there.
Yeah, very good. I've seen a couple hands up. Angie, do you have any questions or comments to the motion amendment?
I do, to the amendment. My concern is that you've gone from 5 to 8. a person is a person, whether it's a little person or a big person, doesn't matter, it's a person. And Rick Brady was very clear that, that our staff will not be able to defend the position of 8. So that does give me some concern, and maybe we should discuss that.
Very well. No disrespect to staff. I guess from a city level, let's take it from that perspective. So as the majority of you are counselors, unfortunately, to put you into that spot, would you then be willing to oppose this application as counselors? There's 4 of you here, so here's your opportunity to not necessarily speak on behalf of your fellow counselors, but there are 4 of you here, so I'll leave it to that comment, and we'll go from there. So Angie, since you asked the question, I'll go to you first, and Gary,
okay.
And Garrett, you had your hand up as well.
Thank you. Yes, reluctantly, I would have to do that. And really, I mean, our job as city councilors is to make sure that we do everything in the best interest of the entire city. The tax dollars certainly are those interests as well. And we know that making decisions that you know are likely to be appealed is meaning the city will have to spend money in defense of a position, or choose not to defend it, in which case the whole thing goes under anyway. So it's a touchy place to be. I know that. It's very, very frustrating, because I really think what Shannon's doing is amazing, and I would love to see that be bigger and better. But I'm sorry, I just can't support it. It has to go to 5, and that should be it. That's all I can say on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric, you had your hand up first. We'll go to you, or unless you had another question.
I had a different question, but for some of the reasons already mentioned, I will not support the amendment. Thank you.
Gary?
Well, I was just going to answer the question that, as tempting as it might be, as I've been a committee of adjustment member as a citizen and as a counselor, but when I'm here, I can only wear one hat, and whatever that fallout is, so be it. But I can't look at it from that point in terms of my decision making.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on the amendment to alter condition 2? Not seeing any, so we'll go to a vote. All those in favor of amending condition 2? Those opposed? It'll be defeated. So with that, we're back to the main motion, leaving 2 at 5. Customers, any other questions or comments that anyone has? Not seeing any. So with that, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as amended with the additional condition 4 for the parking, all those in favor? Opposed? That'll be carried. Thank you. So with that said, Mr. Secretary, the next application at your leisure, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our next application tonight is application A19-21-PC. In the matter of the Planning Act RSO 1990, CP 13 as amended in section 6.3DG of the Port Colborne zoning bylaw 6575/30/18 as amended, and in the matter of the property legally known as Lot 54 on Plan 857 in the City of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara, located in the 3rd Density Residential Zone, municipally known as 130 Rodney Street. And in the matter of an application by the owners Alvin Thacker Rampersad and Fessi Zamora Perez for relief from the provisions of zoning bylaw 6575/30/18 as amended under section 45 of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP 13 for a proposed detached dwelling notwithstanding the following. 1, that a minimum front yard setback of 1 meter be provided, whereas a minimum front yard setback of 6.5 meters is required. And 2, that a minimum rear yard setback of 1 meter be provided, whereas a minimum rear yard setback of 6 meters is required. Planning staff has reviewed the reference application and offer the following comments. Notice was circulated on June 29th, 2021, and as of July 9th, the following has been received. From our engineering department, they stated that the services had been shut off, or not shut off recently, but sorry, I don't have them in front of me here, but they were discontinued to the site, so there's currently no servicing to the site. And that was the extent of their comments. Given the information in the planning staff comments, planning staff recommend application A20 sorry, this is the wrong, should be A19. A19-21-PC be granted subject to the following conditions. One, that a front yard setback of 2 meters be provided, whereas 6.5 meters is required. For the following reasons. One, it is minor in nature, as the reduction in front yard and rear yard setbacks are considered a reasonable and measured request. Two, it is appropriate for development of the site, since the proposed dwelling and accessory building will be located in a suitable location on the site with setbacks similar to those of the neighboring dwellings. Three, it is desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, as single detached dwellings are permitted in the third density residential zone. And four, it is desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan, as residential uses are permitted in the medium density urban area. And that concludes the correspondence for this application.
Thank you. Can you bring in the applicant, please?
Sorry, Dan. I see the engineering comments copied on the back here. I didn't realize they were there. Do you want me to read those out?
Yeah, sure. If you have them there.
Sure. So from engineering, they state the existing sanitary and water services for the property may have been abandoned during construction of storm sewer in 2017. New services may be required at the time of construction.
All right, thank you. I see the applicant has joined us. You can hear us all right? Your microphone's on mute. You'll have to unmute your microphone.
How about now?
There we go. That's it.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Is there anything further you'd like to add before we start into any questions that we might have?
No, I think mine's pretty straightforward. If you guys have any questions of me, just let me know.
All right, very good. Do any members have any questions of the applicant this evening, Gary?
Thank you to the applicant. I just wanted to, were you able to hear those engineering comments, sir, about that there may not be water or sewer there now? That may be on the private side as well as the public side lateral. We normally wouldn't make those conditions of the consent, but just wanted you to know for the record that engineering has said that those may have been disconnected or not there.
Okay. So what's the procedure? Because obviously I want to build on the property. So what would the procedure be to get that?
They can perhaps answer, but I'm sure it's dealing with engineering and planning to get your application and timing and costs and all that stuff. Okay. David or Chris, if I got that right?
If I may jump in here, through you, Mr. Chair, to Member Bruno. To my knowledge, the engineering comment was referring to the actual mains that were redone on Rodney Street, where the laterals that were going to the property were likely taken out during that process. So I'm assuming, I think that's what they meant by that. The laterals that were there were taken out, so the new laterals would need to go in as part of the construction process, which any lot would need to do.
Great.
And, and if I might, on that same point, it's not exactly related to this. The portion from where the main is in the street to the property line, that's not the property owner's cost, is it?
To you, Mr. Chair, yes, it is. The developer or the applicant is required to cover the costs of the lateral. It still is under the ownership of the city until the property line, but it is the cost of the applicant.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I don't know if anyone has any questions at all for the applicant. Angie?
Thanks, Dan. I'm not sure that this is for the applicant or for staff, but it's a question of whether the setback is measured. Where is the measurement taken? from the inside edge of the sidewalk to the front of the building? What is the actual place that the measurement is taken for that? For the front yard setback?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Member Desmarais. It's from the lot line to the side of the building.
From the lot line?
Yes.
Okay, and the lot line is?
I'm not sure exactly where it is. Typically, it is just before the sidewalk.
Okay, because on Rodney Street, I believe there are a few houses where the lot line is actually on the street side of the sidewalk edge.
Yeah, I believe that's on the south side of the street. On the north side of the street, and I've been to this property like 4 times over the weekend, right, trying to figure out where the property line is. I don't, to the applicant, has this property been surveyed recently?
It hasn't, and I bought it from the city, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
And so I was waiting to get through this process of doing the minor variance and seeing what you guys will allow, and then I was going to get the surveyor to draw it up from there.
Okay. The reason I asked the question, I went on the Niagara Navigator, and you can see an aerial image of the properties in the area. It does give property lines, generally speaking. I realize it's not a survey, but I did notice that the sidewalk on the south side of the street down farther looks like it is on the property owner's part of their property. On the north side, the sidewalk is not. However, the property to the east, it would appear the property line goes right through their front porch. And
it does.
It's hard to know until we get a survey done, really, right?
True. Definitively, absolutely. The property to the west, I would say the front of the porch or house is probably right on the property line. What I tried to do is I used the house to the west and the one to the north. There's not a very big space between those two properties or those two dwellings. I'm going to say it's maybe about 2 feet. So I kind of used that and pasted off. And if you attended the site, there's a paved parking lot with a little walkway to the house to the west, and it would appear that the property line is about the middle where that sidewalk is, that little walkway from the paved area. So I guess my concern about the increasing it to 2 meters is this house will then be set back way past the 2 neighboring properties, and that's the part that to me, the other street, I realize it's not necessarily a guide. The neighbors looks like they're over the property line. The one on the east, the one on the west looks like they're right on the property line. And now you're going to make this property be 2 meters farther north. So it's going to be really set in compared to the 2 neighboring properties. And that's the only point that I was looking at. The 1 meter fine, you should be in from your property to service your property, but the 2 meters, I'd be quite frankly good with the 1 meter, just because it would still look the same as the rest of the properties. Angie?
If I can, just a little history that may help. I actually watched that house burn down that was on that property, and I do remember it well before it burned down. That house was always about 8 feet in from the sidewalk. It was just a 2-bedroom, living room, bathroom. It was just a very small house, but it was about 8 feet in from the property line, or from the sidewalk rather. And the house next door, if you hold on a little bit, it's going up for sale. So the one that's right on the corner.
So, like I said, I'm just using those as the reference. I wasn't aware there was another property there previously. I'm just looking at the state that it's in now. Quite frankly, I appreciate to try to get more in compliance with the zoning requirement, but quite frankly, I would be good with just staying with the 1 meter. It's still going to be set back off the street farther than the 2 neighboring properties. So from that perspective, that's the only rationale that I'm using in this particular case, is that to go to that shortened setback, I don't think is going to be that significant. And it is a very small lot to begin with, so there's not that much of a window there to build on as it is. But those are my only comments. Unfortunate that they didn't run the laterals to this property as they were building it. I don't know if the city owned that property at that time and they're the ones that decided not to do that or whatever, but that's really unfortunate. If it was a property or a lot of record at the time, that the city wouldn't have ran those anyway, just like they would have any other property on there, and the burden wouldn't have been on the property owner to do that after the fact. But it is what it is. But with that, that's the only comments that I have. I don't know if anyone else has any other comments. Not seeing any. I'll just reconfirm that there is no delegations for this particular application.
Yes, that's correct.
All right. So with that, if there's no other comments, does the applicant have anything further to add at this point?
So when I originally put the application forward, it was with the 1 meter setback that you're talking about, and
Correct.
The planning staff suggested the 2 meters. I'm happy with whatever you guys decide. Whatever building lot you guys decide is appropriate, I can work with.
Very good. Angie?
I'm willing to move this.
All right.
That application A1921 PC, the minor variance application A1921 PC be granted, subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report dated July 9, 2021, for the following reasons. One, it minor in nature, as the reduction of the front yard and rear yard setbacks are considered a reasonable and measurable request. 2, appropriate for the development of the site, since the proposed dwelling and accessory building will be located in a suitable location on the site with setbacks similar to those of neighboring dwellings. 3, desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, as single detached dwellings are permitted in third density residential zone. 4, desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan, as residential uses are permitted in the medium density urban areas. Okay.
Thank you. And a seconder to that, Gary. Any questions or comments? Not seeing any. All those in favor? And that'll be carried. Thank you. There is a 20-day waiting period that you have to wait, but other than that, you're good to go. Did you want to add something?
Just one question is, so is it being granted with the 1 meter setback or the 2 meter setback?
The 2 meters.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thanks very much, everyone, for your time.
Bye now.
All right, the next application, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our next application is application B10-21-PC. In the matter of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP 13, Section 53(1), and in the matter of the lands legally known as Concession 1, Part Lot 4, Parts 1 and 2 on Plan 59R 7023 in the City of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara, located in the Agricultural and Agricultural Residential Zone, municipally known as 5091 Highway 3. In the matter of an application by the owners Raymond Paul Reel and Barbara Klimenhaga for the lot boundary adjustment under Section 53(1) of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP 13, so as to permit the conveyance of Part 1 having a lot area of 1,666.8 meters squared for a proposed lot addition to the abutting lands known as 5113 Highway 3. Planning staff has reviewed the reference application and offered the following comments for your hearing. Notice was circulated on July 29th to the public and to the required agencies, and the following has been received. From the drainage superintendent, the property is in the watershed of the municipal drain known as the Bears Drain. Should the severance be approved, upon submission of the deposited plan to the planning department, a drainage apportionment agreement will be required. This can be completed by the drainage superintendent or by an approved engineer at the cost of the applicant. A copy of the deposited reference plan must be delivered to the drainage superintendent through the planning department for the apportionment agreement to be completed. Just as a little break, did the committee receive the region's comments? I believe that they were sent after the report had been posted.
I don't recall. I think there was some regional comments we received today.
Yes.
Yeah, those would have been for the first application. Dave, do we have those comments in the file? I'm pretty sure they didn't have any objection, but I'm scratching my brain trying to see if I even had circulated them to you, which I hope I did. My apologies if I did not. Yeah,
I
if you
don't see
mind.
any comments from the region in my emails for this application.
You have them? Okay. Good. I was kind of
No, I do. No, I do not.
You don't. Okay.
No.
Can you refresh my memory with what they were? I read them.
Well, yeah, Dave's going to read them for us right now. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Just give us a second here. I think what happened there was that the region submitted comments for 954 Wildwood Road, which had deferred. So when they came into my inbox, I think I mistakenly took them as the Wildwood comments, so I didn't circulate them to everybody.
If you'd like, I'd just read the conclusion. Regional Planning and Development Services staff are not opposed to the proposed minor boundary adjustment, subject to the satisfaction of any local requirements, and conditional on Part 1 merging in title with the adjacent lands at 5113 Highway 3.
Okay. Does that satisfy everyone?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, perfect. Let's move on here then. So given the information in the planning staff report, planning staff recommend that application B10-21-PC be granted subject to the following conditions. One, that a minor variance application be approved for Part 2, granting relief from the zoning bylaw 6575/30/18 as amended for minimum lot area and lot frontage. 2, that a drainage apportionment agreement be completed by the city's drainage superintendent or by an approved engineer at the cost of the applicant. A copy of the deposited plan must be delivered to the drainage superintendent through the planning department for the apportionment agreement to be completed. 3, that the applicant provides the secretary treasurer with the deeds in triplicate for conveyance of the subject parcel or a registerable legal description of the subject parcel, together with a paper copy and electronic copy of the deposited reference plan, if applicable, for use in the issuance of the certificate of consent. 4, that a final certification fee of $212 payable to the city of Port Colborne be submitted to the secretary treasurer. For the following reasons: 1, the application conforms to the provincial policy statement, the policies of the regional official plan, City of Port Colborne official plan, and will also comply with the provisions of zoning bylaw 6575/30/18 as amended. And 2, this decision is rendered having regard to the provisions of subsection 5124 of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP 13. And that concludes the correspondence for this application.
Thank you. We bring in the applicant, please.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We can hear you, but we can't see you at the moment.
Oh, well, that's because I'm technologically not very good, and I have no idea how to do that. So,
okay, that's not the end of the world for that. Is there anything further you'd like to add at this time?
Maybe just that on this particular application, I've owned this property for a little over the last 20 years. I own both pieces of property involved in this proceeding. The piece of land in question, which we want to give from 5091 to 5113 Highway 3. 5113 has had an easement over this property for over 20 years now that I've owned it, for the septic on 5113. And so all I want to do is just, instead of having that easement over that piece of property at 5091, my house, I just want to get rid of the easement and stuff and just let 5113 own that piece of property that it already has and needs for its septic system anyway. So to me, it seems kind of cut and dried. I don't know, but I'm open to any questions you guys have.
Very good, thank you. Is there any questions that us guys have? Not seeing any. I don't believe there's any delegations that requested to speak to this application. If I can just get a confirmation of that.
That is correct.
So with that, I don't have anything further. I'll go to your point. It seems pretty straightforward that the plan is to merge part 2 with that neighboring property where the septic overlaps it. So I think that complies with the region's comments as well. So I don't have anything further to add on that. If someone's got a recommendation, Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The consent application B10-21 PC be granted subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report dated July 9th, 2021. For the following reasons: 1, the application confirms the provincial policy statement, the policies of the regional official plan, City of Port Colborne official plan, and will also comply with the provisions of zoning bylaw 675/30/18 as amended. And 2, this decision is rendered having regard to the provisions of subsection 5124 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, CP 13.
Thank you. Can I get a seconder to that? Eric, any questions or comments? All those, sorry, Angie, question? No?
Nope.
Okay, sorry. All those in favor? That'll be carried. Thank you. There is a 20-day waiting period, but other than that, there should be no issues.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And last but not least, the final applications this evening, Mr. Secretary.
Our final applications, which will be read concurrently, are applications B11-21-PC and A21-21-PC. In the matter of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, CP 13, Section 53(1), and in the matter of Planning Act, RSO 1990, CP 13, as amended in Section 6.3G of the City of Port Colborne Zoning Bylaw 6575/30/18, as amended. And in the matter of the lands legally known as lots 355 and 356 on Plan 16 of the City of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara, municipally known as 205 Kent Street. In the matter of an application by the owners Wendy and Jacob Bass for a severance under Section 53(1) of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, CP 13, so as to permit the conveyance of Part 1 having a lot frontage of 18.75 meters and a lot area of 526.1 meters squared on Fielden Avenue for future residential use. Part 2 will retain a lot frontage of 28.04 meters on Kent Street with a lot area of 901.5 meters squared for continued residential use. And in the matter of an application by the owners, Wendy and Jacob Bass, for relief from the provisions of zoning bylaw 6575/30/18 as amended under Section 45 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, CP 13, for a proposed continued residential use notwithstanding the following. 1, that a minimum rear yard setback of 4.5 meters be provided, whereas a minimum rear yard setback of 6 meters is required in the second density residential zone. Planning staff has reviewed the application and offer the following comments. Notice was circulated to the corresponding agencies and the public on June 29th, and the following has been received from our engineering department. There are no sewers or water main fronting the proposed severed property on Fielden Avenue. Installation of sanitary sewer and water main is required on Fielden Avenue to service the proposed Part 1 severance, or an easement through Part 2 will be required to accommodate installation of site servicing from Kent Street. Given the information in the planning staff report, planning staff recommend that application B11-21-PC be granted subject to the following conditions. 1, that the applicant provides the Secretary Treasurer with the deeds in triplicate for conveyance of the subject parcel or a registerable legal description of the subject parcel, together with a paper copy and electronic copy of the deposited reference plan, if applicable, for the use in the issuance of the certificate of consent. 2, that a final certification fee of $212 payable to the City of Port Colborne be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer. 3, that the owner demolish the existing vinyl-sided shed or enters into a development agreement with the City Council to temporarily permit it while construction of the primary dwelling takes place. 4, that the minor variance application A21-21 PC be granted. And 5, sorry, I don't have that in front of me either, but it's that the owner acknowledges the parkland dedication fee and submit a letter indicating that they are aware of the collection of parkland dedication at the time of the building permit application. And for the following reasons: 1, that the application conforms to the provincial policy statement, the policies of the regional official plan, City of Port Colborne official plan, and will also comply with the provisions of zoning bylaw 6575/30/18 as amended. 3, the decision is rendered having regard to the provisions of subsection 5124 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 CP 13. And planning staff recommend that application A21-21 PC be granted subject for the following reasons. 1, it is minor in nature, as the reduced rear yard setback is a reasonable and measured request. 2, it is appropriate for the development of the site since there is no proposed development for Part 2 and the existing use will not be affected. 3, it is desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purposes of the zoning bylaw, as there are no proposed changes in use for Part 2 and the existing residential use is permitted in the second density residential zone. And 4, it is desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan, as detached dwellings are permitted in the urban residential designation. And that concludes the correspondence for these applications.
Thank you. Can you bring the application in, please? Or applicant in, sorry. Good evening.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can. I just dawned on me now that I didn't ask the other applicants as they come in whether they wish to withdraw or defer their application. I'm assuming you don't wish to either.
I want to proceed.
Very good. Is there anything further you'd like to add at this time?
The only thing I would like to appeal to the committee is if they do grant me the lot, that they would consider letting me leave the building on the property. It's a really sturdy building. We spent about $2,500, maybe $3,000 on it 2 years ago to put vinyl siding on it and soffit and fascia. It's got a nice roof with no rust on it. And we'd like to keep the building there so we can keep our lawnmower and stuff in there so that we can keep the property up. I guess that'd be my only question.
Very good. I believe in the staff recommendation was that that would be permitted as long as whenever you did go to build, it could stay until such time as it was built upon. And then at that time, you can make a decision whether that would have to come down after the construction of a dwelling at that point, assuming it didn't comply with the zoning bylaw requirements at that time, I would assume. So I think that might already be in there for you. Yes, go ahead to the applicant.
Okay, so if I don't build a house for 5 years, I can still leave the building there?
I believe that's the way the condition is worded.
Okay.
I can get clarification from staff on that.
Through you, excuse me, through you, Mr. Chair. The way that condition works is that the owner would enter into a development agreement with the city, which would set out a time frame where the accessory building would exist on the property prior to the building being built, the main building. So there is a time frame that is set with the development agreement, and that would be a separate application that is made to the city afterwards.
Okay. So that is there at the moment. So I've seen a couple hands. I'm going to go to Donna first and then Gary second.
I have a question. When I visited, maybe this through you, Mr. Chair, to the applicant, when I visited this laneway and Fielden Avenue, there is a whole row of trees there. Are they located on your property or are they city property? The trees that run along the back of this property, the laneway?
Those trees are on my property. They're just inside of the two orange markers the orange markers are at the corners of the lot, the new lot.
It looked like they were. So those trees would be left, or were you planning on taking those down?
They'll probably be left there for now, but if we develop the property, then we would have to take them down. Most of them anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Gary?
Thank you. Through you to Chris or David. Could Ms. Bass not apply for a minor variance to keep the shed? Because is it the lot footprint that she's using up too much space, or is it the distance to the property lines?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Member Bruno. The thing with an accessory building on a vacant lot is that in our bylaw, an accessory building needs to be accessory to the main use on the property. And if there's no main use, then it's not considered an accessory building. So we allow for minor variances to permit an accessory building as a main use. We do allow that. That would be a more permanent solution for Ms. Bass. Or we also have the development agreement route, which would allow the accessory building to be located on the property for a certain time frame while the house is under construction.
So just to that, if Ms. Bass builds the house, then the building shed is supposed to come down. Could she not at that point ask for a minor variance? So she is not putting the horse or the cart before the horse. She's building the house, and you're allowing that shed to stay there while it's vacant. But when she builds the house, in theory, I mean, she could tear down the shed and apply for the building and then apply for a minor variance to build a new one. Could she not?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't know if we're not on the same wavelength here, but I don't believe the location of the shed is the concern. It's that the shed, once you sever the property, the shed will be located on a vacant property essentially, which isn't permitted in our bylaw.
Okay, when I looked at it today, I thought it went with the new lot. Sorry, thank you.
It does.
Right.
But it's not the location of it in relation to the lot lines or the size of it or anything like that. It's just that an accessory building, as set out in the bylaw, needs to be accessory to a dwelling or accessory to a main use on the property. If there's no main use established on the property, then it cannot exist according to the bylaw.
But when the house is built, there is a main use.
Yeah, that's the thing. So once the house is there and the shed is there, if they enter into the agreement, then the agreement is null and void at that time because there's a house which allows the accessory building to exist. It's just that time frame in between the time when the consent is registered to the time of building the house where there's an issue with our bylaw and not permitting the accessory building. That's the only concern. If we don't have an agreement in place or a minor variance that's permitting that accessory building to exist on its own, then it's in violation of the bylaw, and we don't have anything to say when Ms. Bass and her husband may build in the future.
Got it. Okay.
All right. Yeah, Eric, and then I'll go to the applicant again.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the applicant. Are you intending to sever and sell the property before development?
No, I don't have any intention of selling it. I've already had all the neighbors in the area trying to buy it from me, and I keep telling them it's not for sale. They all want to build a house there, and I said, no, I'm keeping that for myself.
Okay, that's all. Thanks.
Just to the applicant, I think you had your hand up. Did you want to add something?
I just wanted to say I did add on to the application for the variance the problem of this shed, whatever you want to call it, being there, and that the city wants me to tear it down. I have added that on as a request, and I'm sure maybe it's the city's view on it that they don't want a building there because it could become derelict and just ignored and whatever, but it was a very sturdy building, but it was ugly. So that's why we put all the siding and fixed it all up, because we aren't the type of people to leave something to go to rack and ruin. We keep everything nice, and we won't do that. And I'm sure the city must have some kind of a law that if the building did become run down, they would make you tear it down anyway. So it just seems such a shame. It's a beautiful building and it's not in anybody's way. So that's my opinion.
Thank you. Just to that point, for a point of clarity, the variance that's as part of this application, the variance is on part 2, where the existing dwelling is. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
So the variance that you've asked for is, so if it is severed, then you're allowed to have that 4.5 meter setback from your existing dwelling to the new property line. It's not for the shed.
Okay, I must have made a mistake then, because when I filled the forms out, I thought I had to put that on about the shed too. So that's my mistake.
So is that staff's understanding as well of the way I was describing it?
Yeah.
Yes, so to you, Mr. Chair, I believe she did include something in her application originally about the shed. And then we had discussions with her about the development agreement. However, a minor variance, she was requesting a minor variance for part 2 and for part 1, when in reality, that would need to be done through 2 separate applications. If she wanted to apply for a variance for the shed and then apply for the setback on the existing house, those would need to be done through 2 separate applications and couldn't be done under one.
And is it possible to apply for a variance for just an accessory building on a vacant lot?
Yeah, we would say that it is.
Okay. Donna?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I'm just a little bit confused. So we've got 2 lots here to begin with. This is a double lot, this corner lot, 355 and 356. Is that correct? You're on a double lot there?
Well, technically, yes, it is 2 existing lots of record. The lots run north-south, and she's proposing a severance through east-west, so the existing lots of record are kind of relevant in this situation. If they were to be severed that way, the house would become a legal non-conforming use.
Okay, so if they get severed to part 1 and part 2 as they're being put forward, when I first saw this, I actually thought this was another severance as well, coming 355, 356 straight across and down on the side of the house. So that's not happening. That's not becoming 2 lots, 355, 356, the 2 front off of Kent Street, and then the 3rd one off of Field. And I actually thought this was 2 severances.
No.
But it's just severing part 1 and part 2. Does that section of 355 beside the house, Mr. Schultz, become eligible to become another lot? Is that another building lot then? Or does this become split the other way and the lots now are relocated?
Through Mr. Chair, once the lots are severed, the legal descriptions of them would change, which wouldn't allow that lots that are in an existing plan of subdivision are permitted to be split if they have a separate PIN. To my knowledge at least. But once you sever off a portion of it, it becomes part of a lot, which isn't transferable without another consent application.
So they could actually ask for another severance here with another application then?
Hypothetically, yes. There would be setback issues with the existing house that would need to be addressed as well. And I believe the lot would be much smaller than what's permitted in our bylaw. So obviously, staff would have to review that at that time, but nothing is impossible really when it comes to a committee.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dom.
I was just going to say that was just my question, and like I said, and the laneway, is the laneway owned by these property owners, or is that a city-owned laneway at the back behind them? Do you know that, David?
I believe it is city-owned.
It is city-owned. Okay, thank you.
I see the applicant had her hand up.
I just wanted to mention I've got a copy of the drawing from the surveyor, and the house is there now is like inches from that other original lot that was there. So there wouldn't be any chance, and we're not interested in severing that anyway, but I don't think it could be done.
Okay, very good. Any other questions of the applicant before we go to delegations? Not seeing any. I believe there was one delegation that wished to speak to this application, and hopefully they're still there. If we can bring them in at this point. If you're trying to speak, your mic is on mute.
That better?
There we go. So we can hear you, but we can't see you, but that is fine. If you could just, before you get started, if you can just say your name and address for the record and try to limit your comments to 10 minutes, please.
Yes. My name is Denise Stewart. I live at 212 Charlotte Street, just north of the building on the other side of the laneway. My concerns are, I disagree with the neighborhood wanting a house there. Everyone that we talked to has enjoyed our neighborhood the way it has been. We knew when we moved here over 40 years ago that that the two lots were both on Kent Street that went through to the laneway. Also, we have a copy of the map. As to the trees, we would love the trees to stay because of the birds and the just how nice it makes our neighborhood. The actual orange stakes that are in the ground were not put in by the surveyor. They were put in by the homeowner. When we've kind of roughly, not going on their property, measured, they are not accurate. So if anyone physically is going to the lot, I think more of the trees are on the city property. We would hope that if it is approved, that it would only be a single dwelling home and not any kind of duplex. The owners do not live in that house. They're not in the neighborhood and don't realize how much we enjoy the way the neighborhood is and the nice lots. We're worried about the infrastructure because there isn't any on Fielden. The roads will be torn up. Yeah, that's pretty well it. Is the trees on the laneway are just beautiful, and just we planted ornamental trees this year along our fence line just to even enhance the laneway to make the property look nicer. If we would have known this, maybe we would have put up more privacy trees. And yes, if the trees could stay, we would be happier with this situation.
All right, thank you. Just to the applicant, to the points of those stakes, were they done by an Ontario land surveyor?
I had Mark Gilmore come and do the drawing that I submitted to you, and I asked him at the time, would he please put in the 6 stakes so that I would at least know. I wasn't even sure whose fence was on what property. And he said, oh, I don't do that now. I do that after it's been approved. So then when I got the application, we took the drawings from the surveyor from I don't know how many years ago, and we have 100-foot tape, and we marked and put the stakes in to the best of our ability. And I think they're accurate. And we really don't have any intentions of tearing down any trees. We like trees too. We just planted some at our other property, and that isn't our intention. There's a bit of scrub brush under there that's kind of ugly, but we don't have an intention of tearing the trees down.
So if I might, and you don't necessarily have to answer, you've mentioned that you want to sever the property, but you have no intention of building or selling it. So what's the purpose of severing it? If you don't mind.
I didn't say I had no intention of building. I don't have an intention of building right away. It's just since we were able to sever it, we thought we would do it. And if we don't like where we're living, say 10 years from now, if we can't do the stairs in our house or whatever, and we want a 1-floor bungalow, then we would build it there. Okay. That was our intention. It's a backup plan.
Okay. Does anyone else have any question? I believe, thanks for the Ms. Stewart for coming forward with your comments. I don't believe there's any other public delegations for this, if you can confirm, Chris?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, very good. Eric, I see your hand up.
So through you, Mr. Chair, to maybe David can answer this. Can you just confirm that in the event where an applicant were to be granted the consent and they owned both adjoining lots, does that not then become one property if it's in the same name?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Member Beauregard, it is dependent on how it is registered. Most lawyers would advise their clients to register it in a separate name, which would prevent them from merging in the future. So you are partially correct, and if they are registered in the same name combination, then they will eventually merge again. But if they're in separate names, they won't.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions of the applicant this evening? Not seeing any. Just before we go to someone to move a recommendation, just to be clear to the applicant, that that shed, if this is granted, you'd have to enter into an agreement with the city with regards to a time frame for development or the removal of that shed. Or I think it has been proposed that there's a potential that you could apply for and possibly be granted a variance to leave that shed on the building without a primary building there. So those are another option. What we could do as well is make that a condition of the severance as well, either enter into that agreement with the city with regards to the planning or get a variance to leave it indefinitely until such time as something is being built. So those are a couple options there for you and for the committee members to decide. Gary, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was slow on the draw there. One of the things the last applicant talked about was the eventual construction there, and I understand the applicant doesn't want to build a townhouse or a duplex or a semi or anything like that. But I'm just wondering, through you to our planner, what is the zoning there in terms of development of what would then be a separate lot?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Member Bruno, the zoning is R1, which allows a single-family dwelling.
Okay,
and actually, in all of our zones, in any zone that a dwelling is permitted, we do allow accessory dwelling units. I'm not sure if that's something the applicant is looking into, but that is something that is permitted in all zones.
No, I'm good with the single family as it states in the zoning bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Not seeing any. Does anyone have a recommendation for these two, if we want to do them together, or if I would suggest we do I guess they kind of go hand in hand either way. One's dependent upon the other. So if anyone else make a recommendation. Eric?
I thought maybe someone else would do it, but I'll take it. Which one? Sorry, I just got to find the application. This is. All right, I'm on in application B11-21-PC, known as lots 355 and 356 on Plan 16, municipally known as 205 Kent Street, that consent application B11-21-PC be granted, subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report dated July 9th, 2021, for the following reasons. One, the application conforms to the provincial policy statement, the policies of the regional official plan, City of Port Colborne official plan, and will also comply with the revisions of zoning bylaw 6575/30/18 as amended. Two, this decision is rendered having regard to the revisions of subsection 5124 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, Chapter P13. Should I go with the next application as well?
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Okay. That is application, and also in application A21-21-PC, lots 355 and 356 on Plan 854, municipally known as 205 Kent Street. The minor variance application A21-21-PC be granted, subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report dated July 9th, 2021, for the following reasons. One, it's minor in nature, as the reduced rear yard setback is a reasonable and measured request. Two, appropriate for the development of the site, since there is no proposed development for Part 2 and the existing use will not be affected. Three, desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, as there are no proposed changes in use for Part 2 and the existing residential use is permitted in the second density residential zone. Four, desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan, as detached dwellings are permitted in the urban residential designation.
Thank you. And a seconder to that, Gary. Questions or comments? If I might, on the severance application B1121, I'd look to a amendment to condition 3, just to, I think it was condition 3. Yeah, condition 3 about the demolition of the vinyl shed. Just to add to that condition, or an accepted or passing of a minor variance to allow the accessory building to remain without having a primary use or shed. So either of those two. I don't know how long a development agreement can be put into place before action has to be taken for a building permit and yada, yada, yada. But either one of those two to be in place. Otherwise, then the shed will not be in compliance. And I would assume at that same time, if the proposal would be to leave the shed, you could probably cover the fact that it's too close to the new rear property line, because I believe it's like 0.8 meters from the property line, and it probably requires a 1 meter setback, if memory serves me right, for typical accessory dwellings. So could probably cover those both at the same time. So I'll look for a friendly amendment to condition 3 from Eric and Gary, if you're both okay with that friendly amendment.
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. Angie, you had your hand up. Did you want to add something?
No, I was just going to support your friendly amendment.
All right, thank you. So with that, is there any other questions or comments? All those in favor with both applications with the revised amendment? All those in favor? Very good. Passed unanimously for both of those. Thank you. So there is a 20-day waiting period for this to go through. So you do have that time frame to wait. But other than that, you can look into either that minor variance. Because it is a condition, you would still need to get either that development agreement in place or that other minor variance passed within that 1 year time frame. So just keep that in mind, because it cannot be extended past a year. So you'd have a year to comply with those conditions. To the applicant, you have a question?
Yeah, I've got a dumb question now. If I apply for the variance for that shed, maybe you can't answer this, I don't know. Is it possible that would fly, or am I going on an uphill battle?
It's a possibility. I can't speak to this committee or future committees' decisions, but anything is possible. So with that, I'll just leave it at that. You have the other remedy there as well for a development agreement. So Eric, I don't know if you wanted to add some comment to that, but yeah, we don't speak to hypotheticals generally, especially on future.
My comment through you to the applicant is just to speak with our staff through another pre-consultation meeting to discuss that. They'll be able to give you they'll be able to help.
All right, thank you. And with that, is there any other business of any committee members? Angie and Eric. Angie first.
Thank you. I just have a couple of things. One, tonight's first delegate, the first matter we
Angie, sorry, could I interrupt?
Yes.
Can the applicant leave?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so okay. The first issue we dealt with tonight, first application, that was a lot of delegations, and those delegations for the most part had little or nothing to do with the matter that we were hearing. Took up a lot of time. It was a really kind of a frustrating thing for all of us. And Eric, thank you for speaking up with to that, and it cut a little bit of that out. But we really have to find a way to let people know what they need to speak to. So, just to make it understandable for them, so they get that they're not there to do the rah rah rah, please keep this business in town. It's more a case of this is impacting me this way as far as property issues go, not as far as whether it's going to improve my mental health. Although those were glowing statements that were made, it didn't help the situation. So I just like to see us come up with a way to better prepare delegates to speak. That's one, and I would just refer that to staff and think maybe they could think it over and come up with an idea. The other thing is the dribbling in of comments at the really late dates are not helpful at all. I really would like to see some kind of a cutoff date happen, maybe a day before the hearing is going to happen, and if a comment comes in after that, oh well. Because really, it's not helpful at all to have things coming in at the last minute, and you're trying to scramble and get things read or find them. It's just not helpful. I mean, maybe there's another way to deal with that, but I sure would like to hear everybody's thoughts. That's all I had.
I'll go to Eric next, and then Gary after.
Well, just to what Andrew was saying, I do have another thing I want to bring up, but I'll do that later. Typically my typical work day is I start work at 8:00 and I don't look at my phone or do anything, and I'm not done until 5:30. Yeah. So if anything's coming in on a day of committee of adjustment, I'm not reading it, and I'm not going to see it until literally at the meeting. So it is really, really frustrating for me. Yeah. So that's all I can say.
Yeah. All right. Gary next, and then Don.
Well, I guess through all these years of being on the Committee of Adjustment, one thing that's been constant, though, is the outside agencies giving our staff their comments really, really late. I don't know when these came in, but some of them from past practice, which is not a rarity, was the same day as the hearing or late in the day before. And, to their defense, I expect them to be able to go home at 4:30 when I've seen comments come in at 4:28 and 4:29 from the NPCA or the region. The only way we're ever going to, but we have tried for years, council resolutions, et cetera, to get that changed. And I think it's really a function of when we send them stuff, when they get their stuff, and how many things they have on their agenda. The easy solution is to say thou outside agencies must have their comments in by, and that eliminates that whole problem. But I think that's easier said than done. To the other point, Dan, I may have your old number, but I texted you earlier than Eric even to say, about the quality of the dance school. But having said that, what Angie, when she said that, I'm wondering if one of the ways is to add a line in the preamble statement that the chair reads each night that just speaks to, or an extra sentence that says, applicants need to speak to land use planning issues and not and delegations, or maybe it's in the delegation pack, but not to things beyond that, and maybe a couple examples, right? The quality of the business, right? I don't know the word, but I think that's what you're looking for. I just think it might be easier it's in a blanket statement at the beginning. And the only good side to add a little levity to this is, Dan always cuts us off when we start rambling too much. So I've made a note that A18-21 third concession is something I'm just keep in the upper corner of my notes. So when I get cut off, I'll remind them of A18-21.
Gary, I hate to interrupt you, Gary, but I have never cut you off.
I'll cut you both off by saying Dan has the ability to maybe put some control in place here too, because as the chair, he may be able to just stop the whole process and rule comments out of order. And certainly the comment about Harry Wells' daughter really should have been, I really feel that should have been ruled out of order right off the bat. The message has to be sent very clearly that we just won't accept that sort of thing. Because it is a problem. It really is a problem. So maybe going forward, that could happen. I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts are on it.
I'll save my comments to the end. Donna, you're next, and then back to Eric.
Short and sweet. Ditto Angie, ditto Eric, and ditto Gary. I everything. I exactly the same. I'm just sitting here thinking, wow, on a couple of them, but nope, everything you said.
Eric, and then Gary.
Yes, to you, I just want to say that, I don't know. I've seen tribunals, and essentially a committee of adjustment is like a tribunal in many ways. And typically the chairs do, shut down people when they get off the topic of the application. So I would think that as chair, you have that ability, but I'm not sure. Really, you've been doing it for a while, so you would know. So I don't know how much leniency, or if that's really just a matter of discretion for the chair. But I don't know. If we could somehow cut it down, I think doing it through you, Dan, would be probably the best and most effective way.
Yeah.
Gary?
I just want to say that, saying this is constructive criticism, because I don't think we could have a better chair through all the years that I've been on various other committees than Dan. And I think he, takes it serious and does his job exemplarily, time in and time out. So everybody has those moments, I would think. And I know the committee believes that. I do have one other thing that Twig and Eric talked. I found sometime that we should, so let's use the application on Rodney Street where it was a 2 meter. That's what the guy applied for, was 2 meter. I don't know if it's our role to start suggesting, right, that he could go to 1. I think the idea of what we did with the last application is help the person by suggesting options. I think that was totally in order and helpful, but I think there's probably a fine line, right, between that and that. If that applicant would have said, right, okay, I'd rather have 1 meter.
For Gary, I'm going to cut you off on this one because the application was for 1 meter.
In the beginning, yes.
In the beginning.
No, not in the beginning. The application was for 1 meter. Staff would approve it or recommend it for 2 meters, but the application in front of us was for 1 meter.
Bad on me then. I thought it was the other way around.
And that was the reason why I thought we should stay at the 1 meter. That's what he's asking for. That's what the request was. Staff recommended 2 meters. That's my only point. I wasn't certain. The thing is too with us, if they ask for 2 meters, we can't grant them 1. We can grant them less. We can't grant them more unless they go back for a rehearing and re-notification period.
Right.
I'm with you too, Dan. I saw the 1 meter and I thought, why are we talking 2? I wasn't sure.
Yeah, that was the staff recommendation to go to 2.
I heard when you read it, then I realized, I thought, where did it come from? Then I realized it was staff, but it seemed odd that it was one and they were upping it. So
Dan, you realize that in not just keeping delegations in line, you have to keep us in line as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but we trust that you would do that.
So the bar so high, Dan, you know.
Eric, did you have anything that you wanted to add at the end there?
Oh no, I would rather listen to what you have to say about our comments, and then I'll bring up it's completely different.
Okay. To the points that were raised, I guess two of them. One with regards to a timeline. Unfortunately, unlike a council meeting where you have the ability to cut off no delegations past this point, because this is a public meeting and in essence a hearing that we allow delegations to come to. Being the fact that we're virtual is a little bit oddity here, but technically, normally when we sit in council chambers and have the meeting there in public, there is no prerequisite for someone to apply to come. They just show up, and at 6 o'clock, whenever that application comes up, they're entitled to speak. Yes, we do submit discretion with regards to what they speak about. I'm not a big fan of limiting or telling someone you can only say this or only to this. There is some discretion and some latitude. And trust me, every time when a delegate comes up, I write down the time, I'm monitoring the time. And we have had instances where someone will just kind of ramble and going around in circles. I think a few minutes giving their sense of community and how it affects them is very important. So that's why I do allow most of them to at least start down that way. If they keep going on and on and on, yes, I will certainly use discretion. And I have in the past to cut them off and stop them from going there. But everyone is entitled to their 2 cents or their opinion. They're all citizens. So that's why I always let them go that way. But yes, if it's, there's 17 people coming up, and it gets a little ridiculous, then yes, we will say that, please, if something's already been said, you can affirm that. But if you got something more to add, then please add it. But if it's already been said, there's no point in rehashing it over and over and over again.
So at what point does it become unacceptable to have someone make a comment like the one about the applicant being Harry Wells' dog? There's a lot of secrets on that one. That was just
on that point. I've expressed many, and I'll say one more time, many times. That is the problem with having councillors sit on this committee. Council has delegated this responsibility, and let me finish. Council has delegated this responsibility to the Committee of Adjustment so they wouldn't run into these situations of having to come before a complete council meeting, and now it's a political thing. The purpose of the Committee of Adjustment is to make it non-political. So that way it's an independent party of the peers of the community deciding what's good for the community. The council has decided to do this to this committee. Fine. You want to sit councillors on it? That's fine. That's your prerogative to do that. I have no issues with that. But the unfortunate part is there is this perceived bias all of the time. As councillors of that particular ward, when an application comes forward, there's always that potential. And when people bring it up, they bring it up. There is no out of order unless someone blatantly lies.
You know what? I will call a point of order going forward then, because that is seriously not an acceptable comment to have been made. And it would not matter whether councillors were on this committee or not. There have been instances in the past where decisions made by the Committee of Adjustment were out there in the public being said that wouldn't have happened if it weren't a councillor's child or a councillor's brother or whatever. The fact that councillors exist is going to put them in that position. There's no question. But when we have a body that has this responsibility and we're going to allow comments like that to be made, we're doing a great disservice to both this committee and to the city.
But to my point, was the comment not correct?
It wasn't the comment; it's the inference, and you know what that is.
But I would say, can I just say, I would say this is, if the 4 people that are sitting here that are councillors were citizens, and the guy stood up and said, you know what? And I know that person's a neighbor of Dan O'Hara. Or you know what? I know that, you know what, that everybody knows Sam Smith and Tom Lannon in town, right? And he's sitting there. So, I take exception to the fact that out of order is out of order.
Yes.
And so I don't care whether he besmirches a counselor or a citizen, or if he besmirches you. If it's out of order, it's out of order.
He was besmirching he was besmirching the entire system. This process is what he was putting a bad color on this process. He was just, and that's exactly what he was doing. And I would agree with you, Dan, that more people can take pot shots because they're city people. I don't think it helps in a way that we have this backdrop maybe behind us, but because in the council meeting, if you remember, there's a valid reason why those slide-in nameplates change when it's Angie or Gary or Eric sitting there.
I absolutely get that. Eric?
I just wanted to say to that, I personally don't necessarily see what he says being an issue, because he's raising the potential perception of a bias. And that, and like Dan said, that is what he said was not wrong. It was actually, well, maybe correct. I don't know. But
I don't know either.
So a perception of bias is a completely allowable thing that you can say, and it's on us to whether or not we want to put any weight towards it. So that's my only comment on that.
He wasn't raising the perception of bias. He was accusing us of bias. That's what was happening there. If you stop and understand what he said, that's exactly what he was doing. But I mean, you know what? It's a moot point anyway. It's done. It wasn't called on. But I'm just saying, in the future, I would really prefer it that we didn't allow that kind of thing to happen. At some point, people have to be, called. They have to call to question on these things. You can't just let it go.
Okay,
Donna.
2 points. First one was.
I'll come back here. Sorry, go ahead, Donna.
Did you say Donna? I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Okay. Go ahead.
2 points. First one was Shannon said, "I hear that a lot." The minute it was said, I don't know if you guys picked it up, but so she's obviously hearing it because her dad's a counselor.
Sure. Yeah.
So you know what? I think she was okay with it. Number 2 is, I agree with Dan. I think you were perfectly right. It's as tough as it is when you're sitting here and you just want to go do something else, and it's wonderful to hear all these wonderful things about it. But you know what? No one can say they weren't heard, Dan, and so I get it. You have to let people talk, whether we like it or not. And sometimes you're kind of like, okay, they're off topic, but it's important to them to say what they have to say. And they can never say that they weren't heard, that they weren't given a chance to speak. So I see both sides. I know what you're saying, Dan. That's it.
Eric?
Okay, so going a different direction here. Is staff still there?
Sorry? I think so.
Yeah.
I think they've been listening to us.
I just want you to confirm, there's no pre-consultation fee, right?
No, there isn't currently.
Okay. I understand. I don't want to get into a huge debate about this because I think I know why that is. But okay, I just want to confirm that. Thanks.
And in fact, if I'm not mistaken, it's actually recommended that they come in and discuss it beforehand, just so they don't run into surprises later on as they go through the process.
Well, pre-cons are recommended no matter where you go. It's just there's a fee typically, and I think Port Colborne is one of the only places in the region, anyways, that doesn't have a fee. And I understand the resources that go into every pre-consultation meeting, and this is a political decision. I don't want to necessarily talk about now. I just wanted to confirm it with staff.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody got anything else? Can I get a mover and a seconder for the minutes of the June 19th meeting? Gary, Angie, all in favor? Opposed? That'll be carried. Thank you. And we won't ask for a motion to adjourn. I'm just going to cut you off and say we're done.
Thanks, Dan.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you, Dan.